A song we can all get behind. Isn't that lovely? Hi, everybody. So y'all know I was away last week. Many of you do. I was in Estes Park, Colorado, about an hour and a half northwest of Denver. Oh, we got people that know the area. It's cold. Trust me, it's better to be here right now. But I enjoyed my time with the men that met up there, and we did good work. And I come home with all kinds of thoughts. One being our story, which is what I want to talk with you about today, this idea of story. And I remember, those of you that were here a couple of weeks ago, I inundated you with graphs. We're going to do a graph again today. We're not creating a pattern here, though. Just happens that a graph goes with this talk. So let's begin by talking about this idea of story. As a culture, we have this thing that we do for entertainment. We listen to made-up stories. We watch movies, we read books, and this idea of story is an integral part of who we are as a species because it's ancient. Ancient cultures would sit around a campfire and tell stories. It still happens today that people do that. Story is a central focus of the human experience. And yes, you have a story too. We'll get there. I want to start with the structure of the story and talk about where we came to discover that. It actually came from this guy, Gustav Freytag. Who knows Gustav Freytag? Good. That means this 150-year-old information I'm going to share with you today will be new. He was a German novelist and playwright, lived in the 1800s, and diagrammed the content of story. And that's what we want to work on today. So here's what I want to ask you to do. I want you to think about, let's just make this easy, a movie that you really hold as a valuable movie to you, something you've watched maybe more than once, and you really have a sense of the structure of that story in that movie. If those of you that need a little help with that, here's some to think about. All right, and you don't have to just get those. I mean, when I'm doing this with Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's still true. What we're going to talk about, how we're going to explore this idea of story. So all of these stories have in common that they run through the same general flow. And that's what we're going to break down here. So we're going to talk about how that works. And we begin with Gustavs Model at the point of what's called exposition. Now that's kind of a strange word to relate to, but let me explain what it means. It means that you enter the story by being exposed to the characters and to the beginning of the story. And the line there below that word is actually part of the graph. It's pretty straight. Things are going along normally. Things are the way they are. The characters are who they are. You're getting to know them a little bit. But it doesn't start off, I mean, on rare occasions a movie will start off with some explosive thing happening, but the drama of it starts with a flat line. This is just the way things are. And then something happens, right? Something happens. And that changes the trajectory of everything because there was normal, there was the way it is, and then this event or circumstance or situation or whatever you want to call it, however it emerges, something affects that life or that experience that we've been introduced to. Oh, if it could just be that. But it never just works from just that. That's just the starting point for the change that's about to happen. In any good drama, this is not a pleasant experience. This is something that makes life harder, that the key characters or character has to deal with in some way, and has to draw from within them the ability to address this thing. And of course, they do begin to address it. How do things go when that happens? Not very well. Because there's the next stage that you're going to look at, and that's called the rising action. And the reason that there are a series of dots here is it's never just one thing. It's always a multiplicity of things that are going to happen to this person as they try to move beyond this challenge and crisis. And usually it's additional challenge, additional crisis, maybe more characters in the story. Certainly, in many cases, flashbacks that bring all of that stuff into the moment so that there's all this stuff to deal with. Can you think about that in the story that you're thought of? Think about how that worked. Does that apply to the story that you're thinking of, the movie that you're thinking of? Yeah, it's pretty universal. This is the way it works, is that there are challenges or situations or circumstances or events or thoughts, whatever it is, that add to the drama, that add to this mix of information. And initially it's like, this is getting worse. This is getting harder. How are they going to overcome that? We thought maybe they'd get out of that early thing, but here they are, doubling down on it, and it's just getting more and more challenging. How do we deal with that? What do we do? Well, the characters proceed. They continue doing whatever it is that's theirs to do in the storyline until they reach the climax. Yes, I said climax on Sunday morning. I tried to change the word, it wouldn't work. That's the right word. Everything comes to a climax. And out of that, things change again. Something is resolved. Something major happens that allows from that point for action to kind of move into alignment with this new way of being. There's something new happening here. The character has shifted and is now this falling action as the part of, well, there may be some challenges there, but the basic point is that the end of the story is pretty much predetermined to this point. You know where they're going. There may be a little bit left to deal with, but mostly you can get that this is going somewhere. And then we end this graph with resolution, which is the new norm. Now, there's some things to notice about this, and that will help us recognize within the story we're thinking of, the movie that we're thinking of, how this applies. And one is that you'll notice that going from the beginning point, the norm, called exposition, all the way to resolution, which is the new norm, that the new norm is higher than the old norm. Now, obviously, the character or characters had to go through this whole arduous thing to get to the new norm, but they got there, right? This is a universal model for telling a story. It's also the universal model for how your life works. So how do you do it? You're rolling along with life, everything is glorious and wonderful, and something happens. Oh, crap. And you're not happy, and you don't want to have to deal with this, so you call your practitioner and say, treat this away. Because we don't want any of that. We like the old norm. That's the way life was. Why do we have to go through all of this? We don't want it. Yet there it is. And chances are, in all of this not wanting it, we create more stuff not to want. So it builds. More things happen. And this could apply to any area of your life. It could have to do with your prosperity. It could have to do with your health. It could be about a relationship. It could be about how you present yourself in the world, what you bring to the world. Things like somebody could lose a job. They didn't want to lose a job. They wanted to keep it. They didn't like the job, but they didn't want to have to give up the income. So they were willing to go to work begrudgingly. But suddenly they're not needed by that organization anymore, and that job's not there. Well, what comes then? How do I pay my bills? I have to go. I'm going to go down and apply for unemployment. The line is long. It's not pleasant. Maybe I'm going to go check out food stamps. And we're caught up in all this stuff to deal with. And that's an extreme, I know, and none of you are doing that. But everybody has a story going on. Maybe you have multiple stories. Maybe some of your stories are going on with your health and others with your prosperity. Maybe it's just one thing that you're really working on in your life. But I would bet that everybody in the room has a story working. I certainly do. I'm having a colonoscopy on next Wednesday. I've never done that before. The government is giving this to me free. What a gift. Because I turned 65. It's part of Medicare. Yes, we're going to do things to your body now. Okay. And I'm assured by people that have had this procedure that I'm going to be just fine. I'm looking forward to knowing that for myself. We all have stuff going on. The thing, and it's true, that we really would rather not. So do the characters in your movie, yet they have chosen to move forward because that's the thing that characters do. They move forward, they do what it takes, they face the challenges. They remember in the process of that who they are, so that they can do these things. And when we get to that climax, there's that word again, we're right at that place where it makes sense. Where we got to something that is okay. Now, maybe not everything's worked out, but we've come to a place where the problems begin to be resolved. Don't we do that in our lives? Don't we get there? Anyone that had a problem when you were 18, and I doubt you're going to remember what your problems were at 18, maybe you will. But my guess is most of you have worked through those. Now, one thing that I see people doing a lot in life is they're involved in this model. This graph is real for them, whether they know it or not. But they're stuck somewhere in that rising action around one of those dots, playing that over and over and over and over and over again, because they're not limited to the 2 hours that it was required to resolve things in a movie. They can spend years going around about this. Any of us can. It's really easy to get on that rising action drama thing and play it for a lot of different reasons. Mostly because we say we want to resolve it, but we're not focused on resolving it. We're focused on the rising action and the challenges it's bringing into our lives, which gives us what? More rising action and drama in our lives. So what can we do? Perhaps we can focus, even if we don't know what the resolution is going to feel like or look like, we certainly can focus on achieving that moment of climax. Y'all are very generous with me this morning. And when we do, when we come to that point where we get it, it all seems to work out. Always. Yet when we're in the fall of the rising action, we're not acting like it. All is lost. We don't know what to do. Help us, please. Somebody help us here, right? But this is what always happens. This is what always happens. It gets resolved. And we end up at a place of higher consciousness than we were in the beginning. Yet we fret, we worry, we're uncertain, we doubt, when the truth is it's all going to work out, because it always has. Even in the movies where somebody dies in the end, I'm back to my choice, Bohemian Rhapsody, it's still a beautiful story. It's still a meaningful story. Because frankly, folks, we're all going to do that at some point. Not now. But someday we're going to leave here. We're going to let these bodies go. In the meantime, we're in the middle of these. One, maybe more of these. There's actually a name for this thing. It's called the arc of transformation through story. Anybody here not want to be in transformation? Then this is your arc. This is your plot line. This is how your life works. And the end of the process takes you to resolution. What a good idea. What a lovely idea. So knowing that all of us have it, I want to point out that all of us have it collectively too. Our beautiful community is in a storyline, playing this game. we're looking at our lovely Hominy Creek. Someone shared with me, I have no idea if it's true or not, that it's one of the oldest waterways in the world, this little Hominy Creek out here. So the fact that one of the banks would be a little unstable at times and crumbling a bit into the water shouldn't be a great surprise. But none of us are really happy about it, mostly because it's going to cost a lot of money to fix it. And as I explained to our army of engineers that are working on this, is every dime we put on the creek bank is a dime that we don't get to put into raising up all of you and all of those that watch us online. So it's not my favorite idea on how to spend money. But who says I get to pick? Well, let me tell you something. I do get to pick. I do get to pick. There was actually a lovely elderly English woman that approached me when we were looking to buy this land. She was a psychic. Mostly I view psychics as great entertainment, but the woman had actually told me some things that really helped me along the way. And she told me that we shouldn't buy this property because of the sand that is sloughing off this land. I dismissed her, and we bought this land. I have no regrets, yet right now I'm in a story. I'm in the midst of a story that says I got to fix it. I got to be participating in fixing it. And oh, by the way, we're not doing this alone, Barbara and I. Trust me, we're not doing this. We're all doing it together. And as soon as we have from our engineers a proper idea of how to fix this, and we go out for bids to contractors, we're going to call you all into a meeting, and we're going to talk about it and figure out how to do it, because this is your center too. So that is our story for what's happening at our center right now, or at least one element of it. Let's go back to the one talking about your story. I'm not going to ask you at all to tell me your story, but I assure you, you have one. You have one, and you don't know how it's going to turn out because it hasn't turned out yet, and you don't have that data to look at. You can't, in your memory, look back and say, well, okay, this is how it turned out. Maybe something like that has happened to you before, and you can rely on that data and do what we call having a mental equivalent, knowing that because it worked out before, it will work out again. Most of us can do that. But if you can't, if this is a whole new area of focus for you in your life, colonoscopy, what you do is you have faith in yourself, because you are the writer of your life. You're the playwright. You're the author of your book. You're the one that's making your life happen. Now, why in all of creation would you do these things to yourself? For transformation. Exactly. For transformation, and to come to a point of resolution that is a higher level of consciousness than you had before. We all think that we'd love to have a life that just hummed along easily, joyously, without any issues or problems as we move through life. But that's not the way life works. We, individually, build into our lives things to challenge us by the relationships that we have, by the things that we put into our body, by the thoughts that we have more than anything. And when these things show up in our lives and we go, oh, I don't want that, I didn't ask for that, you may not have asked for it, but you created it. And that's not a blaming. That's a PowerPoint. That's something for you to know, is that if you created it, you can create something else. Because the God being that you are is all powerful over all circumstances and creations and situations. All of it. You are more powerful than it. You created it. How could it be more powerful than you? It's impossible. The truth is, no matter how ugly it looks, no matter how difficult it looks, no matter how impossible it seems in the moment, you're bigger and more powerful than it is, no matter what it is. So don't underestimate yourself. You're very creative. You've created some real garbage in your life. Okay, I've created garbage in my life. And I've always worked it out. It's always worked out. So why wouldn't the next thing work out, or the current thing work out? It's going to. It's going to. Your focus, my focus, would be, as we are rising through these points of action, is that we know this thing is coming to fruition. It's working out. We're getting where we need to go. We don't have to know the details. We'll know those soon enough. The thing to know is that life is working. Life is working. And this is the model that'll help us all know that we are creating that. So what's your story? Is your story bigger than you? No. Is your story insurmountable? No. You can do it, whatever it is. And every great piece of drama, every play, every movie that we hold as being powerful and meaningful follows this idea that it does work out, that life works out. We may not know the details right away, but it always works out. It works out for you and it works out for me. And as I pondered this idea of story, I came up with a little reading that really speaks to this for me, and I want to share this with you. It comes from my Sufi friend Rumi. And it's called, "This Being Human is a Guest House." There we go. This is what Rumi says. There we go. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and attend them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of all its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. When difficulty, welcome difficulty. Learn the alchemy that true human beings know. The moment you accept what troubles you've been given, the door opens. Welcome difficulty as a familiar comrade. Joke with torment brought by a friend. Sorrows are the rags of old clothes and jackets that serve to cover and then are taken off. That undressing and the beautiful naked body underneath is the sweetness that comes after grief. So whatever you're facing, whatever you're feeling, don't get stuck there. Let it be okay. You want some support? See a practitioner. But you can do this. I believe in you. I want you to believe in you. No matter what it is, you can do this. Because you will always come to resolution. And you will always have whatever you need to make your life work. That's the truth. Let that be your story. And be happy every day. I love you very much. Thank you.